Hello, everyone who is watching this video. I believe that some people will connect a little bit later online, but most of you will watch later on in the recording. So I will start straight away. As you already can see from the title, from the name of this webinar, we are going to speak here today about a very exciting topic that we've been considering to speak about online in a webinar format for quite some time. Since as an Amazon sellers, as an Amazon agency, we have faced quite a few cases where the products have been selling in the same niche, where Amazon has their own brands, their own products, and the competition was quite difficult at some time, and different challenges has been faced. So I also been asked before quite a couple of times, like, is it a threat that when we are entering as a third party Amazon space, is it a threat to sell on the same page, on the same niche as Amazon? So today I would like to speak shortly about agenda before presenting who the speakers and going into the details. We're going to speak about the selling as a third party versus Amazon brands. Of course, just a few facts in the beginning. Then how to compete with Amazon brands in terms of SEO, in terms of PPC advertising, in terms of different strategies, and see how we can steal market share from Amazon. And then as well, in the end, we will speak about how Amazon thinks about launching new brands. And here I would like to present our guest speaker, Stan. It was very nice to have you today and speak with us on this webinar. I just shortly want to say that Stan has been working for 10 years as a general manager at Amazon and has a very exciting background on launching a lot of different brands in mostly in apparel industry, but a lot of interesting brands that he's been looking himself, creating and launching on the side of Amazon. So Stan is a perfect person who knows how it works on the side of Amazon. And now he's working as a consultant himself. But Stan, maybe you can present and tell a bit more about your experience as well.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. So yeah, I worked at Amazon from about the middle of 2008 to the end of 2018. I led categories like apparel, footwear, luggage, handbags, sunglasses, costumes of all things. I did that in both US and Japan. I don't speak Japanese, so I apologize to my old team that I never did learn the language well enough. Yes, I did actually launch costumes. I launched kids apparel. I launched luggage, launched free returns, actually. So I've done a number of different things that are now probably fairly commonplace on Amazon and can maybe speak to how we thought about growing businesses, competitors in the business, how sellers, brands, interact and integrate on the site. And I can certainly speak to the types of things that Amazon either makes easy or maybe not so easy. That sort of speaks to what I do now. I'm an independent consultant ever since I left Amazon, and I pretty much help brands and sellers with their top line strategy, as well as, let's just say, sticky problems that come up along the way, which Amazon seems to have a way of creating for folks. So that's me.
Thank you for introducing. I believe it's very hard to learn Japanese, probably even in 10 years, the language might be quite complicated. But yeah, I remember speaking like that you've been launching the brands which have been doing $3.5 billion in revenue altogether, which is quite an exciting amount. And I also, like, from our experience, we see that sometimes Amazon brands can get such a huge volume and show and represent the niche from the way that how many people are actually shopping for or another product, which gives a confidence for the third party sellers to enter the space, seeing the potential where it is possible to strive for in terms of revenue. But yeah, and shortly before we jump into the details, you maybe, if you're following us at Innels, you already know about me and Andre. We are co-founders of Innels, and we are a full-service agency which is helping different brands to launch international marketplaces. I won't be presenting and telling more about us. I would just say that in the end of this webinar, we create a special offer for those who are watching, for those who might be interested in selling on Amazon or increase and develop their presence. So stay till the end. And meanwhile, if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to let us know in the comment section below. But I would start and go into the details, as I mentioned in agenda before, speak a bit more about the facts and about how huge is the marketplace. If you can see on the right side of the from the data from the Statista, we can see that from 90s till from early 200s till now, Amazon is giving more and more space for third-party sellers. So if you can see right now in the end of last year, more than 55% of the sales were represented by the third-party sellers compared to, let's say, 8% when it was in the beginning. So Amazon sees an opportunity and gives more and more space for the third-party sellers because they're interested to give as the best customer experience for the end consumers, for the shoppers who are visiting Amazon space, so they can have a lot of different options for buying the products. But a couple of facts that right now more than 200,000 sellers started only last year on Amazon in general, and 1.3 million sales worldwide for all the time since the beginning right now on Amazon. 13% of them are in the US only. When I speak these numbers, it might seem that a lot of different sellers and maybe not so much demand for the products as their supply. However, it is the numbers shows as well that approximately 65% of the US sellers, they make over 100,000 in sales per year. So decent sellers, or the sellers that might be already selling for a few years and keep selling, so showing that there is a market. How to compete with Amazon brands. And before we jump into discussion into details, I want to say that Amazon, in our experience, we see when we manage products in the same niche where Amazon sells their own products, that Amazon in most of the cases they've been search engine organic positioning, and it might be the challenge. So the first lines and the first positions are sometimes by Amazon. However, it is also different from case to case how you can beat this. And Andre will later as well speak about how you can steal the attention and make sure that even if you are on the second page or on the second lines, you can still get this click-through rates and get the conversion. But Amazon, we definitely admit that Amazon has an advantage when they sell their own products. So, for example, here are a couple of categories that Amazon we see most sell their products is health and groceries and household, apparel and baby products, and books and consumer electronics. I just saw this statistics from, again, Statista a couple of days before, and just wanted to say that we also, from our experience, we see that some niches are more populated by Amazon products. And Amazon is very tricky. They are actually, they know how to sell, they know how to present the product, they know how to be creative. Batteries is probably one of the best-selling products. I saw the batteries a couple of days ago sold by Amazon, which have 500,000 reviews, which is extremely high number for the total review count. But if you can see here an example, and if you're looking for Amazon for the batteries, you're more likely to buy Amazon batteries because it just looks more appealing. And what I want to say here is that you can see two different products. On the right side here, as an example, it's Amazon product, and then there is another product for exactly the same price. And this is the bestseller. And probably, I don't know the history of this product, but just as an example, if you're doing quite well, Amazon knows the information. They know how much you're selling. They know your fees. They know about your advertising. They might be not directly using this data, but they still sometimes jump in very interesting niches and copy the product. And this is a threat, of course. So we first speak about those downsides and say that you need to be creative. So in this case, being creative with the image, with the price, and with everything what you can see in the search engine pages before the end consumer clicks on the product. And when they go to the listing, also compare to what kind of listing the Amazon product has, and then see if you can beat it. So here's a good example of how actually Amazon does it. So they created just a very different packaging and lower price. And if you can see, this was a bestseller by another company, and then Amazon has introduced their own products, which actually looks a little bit different, a little bit unique. I've been searching for this niche and saw that most of the sellers, they have just like one box, very boring, very simple image. However, Amazon introduced a bit more creative approach, and just having two packages stand it out in the search engine, because in the search pages, because most of them, they had very similar picture. So what I want to say as well, that it's a general advice number 2, that don't sacrifice for your margins and don't really compete on price, because it's so difficult to compete on price when you sell in the same niche as Amazon. And here's the interesting data that Amazon, you can see how Amazon prices drive retailers nuts. You can see that compared to other platforms like Walmart or Target, how much Amazon is changing. And so number of changes in prices on the product listings. And this number is so high because it's so important for Amazon and for other sellers who compete on price to make sure, first of all, they win the buy box, and second, that they always provide the best price, even if it is 1 cent less. So this game of competing on price, it is not really a sustainable way of selling your product and your brand on Amazon if you compete with Amazon brand. So don't sacrifice for your margins, but be creative and try to come up with something more interesting than so in terms of the brand. So create the brand presence and awareness. So create more interesting listings, communicate in the right way your information about the product on the listings, read through the reviews, understand what people want to see in your product, and make this product adjustments. However, if you only focus on making the best price, you probably won't win this game competing with Amazon products. So here I would like to give a couple of words to Andrei, because I believe that it's an interesting, if you have an interesting experience to speak about the strategy and SEO in general.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mark. And I think it's also important to elaborate regarding the pricing. For sure, don't try to just focus on it too much. You don't have an intention of just selling the cheapest product. Maybe 17 years ago, sometimes it was about selling just a cheap product, but now it's about building the brands. It's about the benefits that actually people will get when buying the product. So it's correct, not focusing that much on the pricing. But yeah, when speaking about strategies, and if we talk about some of the fundamentals, of course, I would say the most important is that you have to be proactive with your business. Because if you think that you can compete against Amazon by putting a product on the marketplace and just expecting it to, waiting for the results to be easy, you're going to be disappointed. Because competing with Amazon is a job that requires constant work. You need to focus on a lot of optimization. You need to take advantage of all the data that you are having. You need to be obsessive with again, your results, data. You need to learn how to spot and capitalize on trends, cut products that are not working, and just focus on the ones that are. Because if you're waiting for too long, that might be the wrong strategy. And of course, yeah, take advantage of having unique brand store product benefits, talking about it on the images, and understand everything about your customer, as you mentioned. It's important. And if we specify about the brand, that's one of the most important things. So you need to ensure that you are building kind of cult around the brand, and you work on the content. Because if you look at most of the Amazon brands, not all of them, but I would say most of them, they're not on a weekly basis, focusing a lot on changing creatives, doing A/B testing, trying to see how to approach their customers and their target group in a better way with the more creative lifestyle images, trying to be really kind of having this luxurious brand image. They're not doing this. And that's where you actually have the advantage, and you can stand out and test what works best for you, for your niche and the customers. And yeah, focus on that. That's super important. That's where you can build a brand that actually has this unique, kind of luxurious, interesting content, Again, like now you have so many features, like in the US, you can do Amazon posts, you can do a lot of videos, you can run experiments. Definitely take advantage, is super important. And if specifically talking about some of the SEO tricks, if you want to compete with Amazon brands, you need to take advantage of the most important thing is flexibility and in-depth optimization that you have. Because do the thorough research on the keywords by using both external tools like Helium or Jungle Scout, combining those, of course, with brand analytics. Yes, Amazon has the power of data, but when you look at their listings, you can see that they are not utilizing it 100% for sure, all the data they have. Hence, make sure that you actually do this. You maxed out your search terms on the backend, that you have at least 300, 500 characters on your A+, because those tags will be indexed. You have alt text keywords on the images. You have, of course, all the title bullets optimized on your images. You have both representing the brand, talking about the product itself. So that's how you can actually really stand out. That's where you can also put your competitors into the search terms. Yes, potentially at some point Amazon can write, hey, you cannot use the competitor in the keyword. If they do so, okay, you just remove it and then you're fine. So it's important to utilize all of this information and do this constantly, because if you just add a new keyword, change your backend, and you do nothing after creating listing, just because a lot of people are afraid that, okay, if I do any changes, I'm gonna lose my indexing, I'm gonna start from zero, my ranking is gonna drop. That's not true. As soon as you are creating the listing, you have all the most important keywords. Amazon understands what the product is about. You can definitely remove some of the keywords. You can put other copy, you can do experiments. It's not gonna affect your indexing that much. That's super important to do. That's your power, that you can add more and more indexes, keywords, and that's how you can get different positioning compared to also Amazon products. Hence, rely on data, and I don't understand when people are just only talking about assumptions. Oh, I think this looks good. Oh, I think this one. Who cares? Like, data tells you what actually works, and do the experiments. Now, a lot of features that you can do. To be honest, I haven't seen any of the Amazon brands doing that much of the experiments. When you're going to the product detail pages and you see completely different content, that's where you can do, but you can actually take an advantage. And that's, for instance, cross-selling. You can ensure that if you have a broad product selection, put those products into the A+ section product grid, put it in your images. Try to ensure when people are on your listing, so you get the traffic, that they're not seeing a lot of other brands like Amazon. So they're actually focusing on your brand, your products. Try to actually protect it. We're going to talk, of course, about the PPC side, how you're protecting this, but also on the SEO side, put it into your bullet points. If you have another product that you can use an addition, put it there. Just make sure they're staying within the brand. And of course, one of the most important things is stand out with your main picture. That's basically when your people are looking for the keywords, first thing they're going to see is the picture. And Mark, if you can just show another slide, the next one about the pictures. We had it there. Yeah, so basically, of course, if you read Amazon rules, they're going to say that it should only be the product on the white background. But to be honest, you can actually test a lot of things here. You can try to add some other things on your product's image. You can play around, see what actually Amazon will allow you to have and what's not. And you will notice that if your image is really interesting in terms of the angle of a product, it's a vivid, interactive colors, maybe you have some additional things on the picture, some silhouettes, this can actually work. That can actually drive a lot of attention from people. So they will actually click on your listing and decide to look into this. Or if they're already on Amazon, let's say brand listing, then when you are doing the product ad, they're going to see, oh, this looks interesting. That stands out from what other companies are doing. So yeah, I would say those are just fundamentals. And I don't know, Mark, maybe you have something to add here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that those images in below of the brand of Nordicare, it's a good example of how to stand out with the main image compared to the products above. But speaking, just want to add about the search engine optimization and seeing Amazon having the first ranking and very hard to beat them in my experience of researching and selling on Amazon for so many years. I see that sometimes it's not possible maybe to rank for the certain keywords on the first places. But when you look in a category, the best sellers in a category, that's where you can actually beat Amazon sometimes and be, for example, the first in a category. And here I also wanted to ask you, Stan, maybe you can elaborate. Do you, like, sometimes for us it looks suspicious that Amazon uses some external tools that we don't have access to in order to boost and like kind of stick their products to the first pages. Do you think that Amazon maybe does something that other sellers, they don't have access to in terms of optimization?
What I would say is there's a yes and no to that. When Amazon creates, let's say, a new private label or whatnot, will they seed their search? No. Seeding is something that Amazon, for the most part, very much avoids. But when you first set up that detail page, do they have access to all data, knowing what keywords are actually searched for, what generic keywords are actually searched for, and which keywords to use in their product descriptions, which keywords should they put their brand as sort of a banner ad at the top of a given generic search? Yes, they know all of that. And so many times when they're launching something, they're essentially giving themselves sort of, because they have access to all of that data from the get-go, they essentially can put themselves at the top because they know how to create their detail page. Now, you both have said some things that I very much agree with, and I want to sort of emphasize. The idea that if you're selling something that is very similar or the exact same, let's say Amazon did copy it exactly, and I'm not going to get into the legalities of, whether that is or is not the case. But the reality is, if you're selling something that's very similar to something that Amazon sells, and you're going to compete on price, Amazon is going to, you have to think like Amazon. So the way Amazon sets up almost anything is, how do they automate for success? And they're going to set up their detail page, and they're going to then price match to any relevant competitor. And that's certainly online, on their own site as well as off their own site. And so the point being is that if you're selling something extremely similar, even if it's not the same detail page, Amazon will price match you almost immediately. And so getting in this, and you're not going to win that game, to the point that's been made earlier. So what I would actually ask people to do is take a step back and say, okay, Amazon has this exact same item, or it's very similar. And you say, well, if I just drop my price by 10 cents, suddenly I win I'm going to default. Well, Amazon's going to price match you immediately. It's going to be this self-fulfilling prophecy of no one making any money. And you're fighting up against someone that does over 300 billion in the US. You're not going to win that. They can lose money for a while. So how do you think in terms of, well, if I'm a customer and I see two items that are very similar, one that says Amazon Essentials or one that says Amazon Basics, and a brand name that I'm not as aware of, and they're at the same price, you're going to default, most customers, I'm just going to say, you're going to default to the Amazon item. So how do you differentiate yourself? And that's where I would say is, think in terms of, how do I differentiate myself from that Amazon item? And some things that you, Mark and Andre, that you said earlier is be creative, is looking at, what are my reviews saying? What are the reviews saying for Amazon? And are there negative reviews? How do you actually look at what the negative reviews are and exploit that for your benefit? Speak to that, without calling attention to saying the Amazon item, but you could speak to why your item is actually good in that regard. You obviously have to be right about whatever you're saying. The other thing too is, using color in your imaging, that's a very important tool. Amazon is not going to change. Once they create the detail page, to the point that's been made earlier, they won't update it. They don't want to hire a bunch of human beings that are going to change their detail pages around because some competitor is changing their detail pages. That's just not how Amazon is set up. So you thinking in terms of, how do I differentiate? You can differentiate yourself by changing your image really whenever you want. Amazon's not going to change their detail page. So you could change yours. And you could also add images within the detail page itself. You could leave the main image however you want. But our data always used to say the more images that you offer, the higher your conversion. There is diminishing returns to that after about 5 to 7 images. But even sometimes, especially in areas like apparel or beauty or whatnot, showing 8, 9, 10 images actually still improves conversion. So think about those sort of things. And then think about your own product description. Again, addressing things that Amazon didn't address within its detail page if you're selling something similar. Can you come up with a product that is not similar? And, sort of augmenting your line, but selling something that actually is not offered. So I would try as best you can to sell not exactly the same item and focus on where you're differentiated. And then the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about is the hidden keyword field, which was addressed earlier. Amazon may have various rules on the hidden keyword field. They very rarely follow them, and they very rarely enforce them. So I'm not going to sit here and blanket say you can put in whatever you want, but you pretty much can. And so you could actually put in the hidden keyword field things that exist on the Amazon detail page itself. So you should be thinking in terms of that. And the worst that's going to happen to you is likely a slap on the wrist, and likely even that is unlikely. So these are all things that you should be thinking about when putting together your detail page, as well as changing it often.
Yeah, I see your point, and very interesting to ask you regarding the keywords, and that Amazon is not using them in such a professional way. Do you see that because of this, Amazon brand, sometimes it's more difficult for them to launch the brand in this early stage, rather than, of course, we see a lot of brands are selling quite well and on the first stages, but I didn't see many products of Amazon selling like which are, I would say, just starting to sell, and then you can see them. They're of course unsuccessful products, but those which are started to sell, then they're increasing quite a lot in a very fast
Amazon
time.
spends a lot of effort on launching, and a lot of effort in the first month or two of either launching a new brand, which isn't many. I mean, for the most part, they now focus on things that are Amazon Basics or Amazon Essentials or things like that. They sometimes get exclusives from existing brands that are exclusive on Amazon. They'll focus a lot of attention on the initial launch and the month or two after that launch. But the reality is they're not going to be very dynamic with either that detail page or that brand as a general rule. And the reality is they don't want to invest human capital they want to invest in automation. So are they going to create tools that optimize for keywords and whatnot within that detail page? Yes, but at launch. So in other words, when they first create the detail page, they'll use data to look at that detail page. And I would argue, are they as good at it as, say, you all or other agencies and whatnot, and certain sellers, overseas sellers that are pretty much just using data because it's not their primary language of English? I would argue, actually, it's the sellers that are better at this than Amazon. Amazon wants to create this in as automated a fashion as possible, meaning do it once, use the data to create it once, and then let it go. That's their, sort of how they operate as a general rule. Doesn't mean that they won't ever change it. I'm sure someone could call in right now or, send something in and say, Stan, I know that this, they absolutely have changed this particular detail. I'm not saying they don't. As a general rule, that is not how they are set up, is to constantly be changing and tweaking their detail page, to constantly be changing and tweaking the sponsored bidding that they use. And they do have to bid on their own. They're just paying one bucket to another. Obviously, they're just paying it to themselves. But the reality is they don't spend the amount of time that actually many sellers I see that do spend the time and do adjust their bidding, but actually are more successful at it. And so that's my suggestion is just because you launched something and, oh, I'm not on row one and Amazon is, that doesn't mean you just give up on that particular ASIN. I would constantly be tweaking that ASIN and or learning what is your customer telling you about that, in reviews and whatnot, and addressing it. And that's something that Amazon just does not. They don't do that sort of learn, react. They actually just learn, apply, and then move on to the next thing.
I see. And getting back a bit, I think it's a very interesting point that sellers can introduce a better product than is already on in a competition. So one example of it can be to create some kind of a bundles or create an additional value in your product, maybe even just product packaging to offer something else that people are looking for. And you have the data sometimes even on the front end. You can see, for example, Amazon brands, Amazon products, what people are buying together with them, or some other competitors, what people are buying together. Sometimes you can see under the product listings, there are different recommendations, and you can use it and say that maybe to combine these products together and sell it as a bundle will make sense since it's additional value. And you can also, of course, in this case, provide a higher price for the bundle together. And you don't compete on price anymore as well. And yeah, sure, Stan, I believe that constant optimization, it's something that we have under control, and that competing is in Amazon space in general, it's very important, like to understand how to constantly change the listing and adjust, and as you say, learn and react. I think it's a perfect wording. But we have one more slide actually here for PPC, and I believe that here a couple of words from you, Andre, maybe just to say about how to approach PPC in the space of this competition.
Yeah, sure. And first thing first, I cannot agree more on this whole idea of just thinking about the product differentiation, just answering some basic questions, looking at this from the holistic point of view. And I would say a lot of things apply to the PPC as well. For instance, if we just simplify, okay, we're approaching PPC, we have an Amazon brand. What is the question? What is the concern I have? Okay, I believe that they're gonna be on the first position, the first page. They're gonna get a lot of clicks. Then okay, but we can still approach and think about it kind of more in depth, which means that we can piggyback on their traffic. Even if customers are clicking on Amazon brand first, you can still use the sponsored product and show your product under the Amazon brand product listing. And by making sure that you have an interesting picture, that you run a lot of tests so you differentiate, that's how you ensure that people might be interested in actually clicking and, oh, this product looks interesting, let me take a look. So it's not always like a biggest problem that, okay, most of the clicks for the generic keywords are going to go to Amazon. No, you can still actually get this traffic, and maybe it's even going to be cheaper because Amazon can really beat high on those generic keywords, and that's how you can also still get this traffic and also for a cheaper price. And here, of course, you need to be more creative. There are a lot of opportunities when it comes to the brand advertisement. For instance, you can do seasonal ads. You can ensure that you're standing out not just by constantly changing and optimizing your creatives, but also understand what is happening. Oh, now it's a Christmas season. Let's do some Christmas creatives that we're going to run for 2-3 weeks. That's how we're going to stand out with our brand ad. And that's just important, like having lifestyle images, everything that helps to convert the content when people are already visiting the listing. And of course, here it comes down to bidding control and budget. It's really important. Amazon, as Stan mentioned, I completely agree that we can see that you really need to spend time on bidding. It's not like you just put the bid for this keyword, you leave it for half a year. No, there are not only Amazon, there are other brands that are gonna compete for this keyword. They're gonna put higher bids. They're gonna maybe bid higher during the specific time of the day, during the specific seasons. You have to keep it in mind. And if you do the right structure and a setup of your campaigns, then also you are not gonna be that limited in terms of budgets. I see a lot of people and sellers are afraid, oh, we're gonna raise our budget really like step by step. But the truth is that if you're having a right setup of the campaigns, you understand the niche, you understand the products, the trends. If you increase the budget, it's also going to increase the overall revenue sales without you having a drop in the performance of your ACOS, let's say. So it's important to first focus on bidding control and then ensuring that you actually tell Amazon, hey, I want to get the traffic. I seek higher budget for the campaigns. It actually shows Amazon that you're willing to invest. And if everything is set up correctly in this campaign, Amazon will push your products more. Of course, they're going to take, of course, at your conversions and etc. But then it also applies to the most important thing that's to think about from the start. You have an Amazon basic product. Of course, they're going to be mostly focused on this main generic keyword. Don't try to always approach generic keyword from the start. They're the second, third, fourth, fifth most popular keywords in your niche. Focus on those first. Try to get positioning and ranking there. And after, of course, when you establish presence, you get more reviews, you get a social proof. You, as Stan mentioned, take a look at your reviews, make sure that everything is performing well. Then, of course, you can start approaching more and more the generic keyword. And the thing is, when Amazon sees that your product is relevant for customers, also it's going to be a bit cheaper for you to advertise for that. So that's just important to keep it in mind. And if you're afraid in the beginning, oh, but am I ready to actually do those strategies with advertising to compete with Amazon brand, start with some basic stuff. You need to answer the question, does Amazon understand my product? And you can really check it quite easy. You go to and try to create automatic campaign and just scroll down the page, and then you will see recommended keywords. And that's basically how you see whether Amazon understands your listing or not. Because if you did a great optimization of the product detail page, let's say I'm selling the furniture oil for wood, etc. If you see those relevant and related to the product keywords into the automatic campaigns, this gives you actually great insight that Amazon understands what the product is about. Hence, you made a great research optimization, and then you can approach other campaigns and etc. So I would say those are just some important basic stuff that you need to focus on in order to compete with Amazon, in order to understand when can you actually be more aggressive on certain activities when it comes to your advertising strategy. And of course, last but not least, protect your brand. Make sure that when customers are in your detail page, they're not seeing Amazon brands, other competitors, they're seeing solely your brand. And if you have some other products, just put them as a product targeting under your own ASINs. Make sure that you don't give customers a chance to go somewhere else. Make sure they're sticking with it within your brand kind of ecosystem. So yeah, I would say those are just most of the important things that are just in my mind for now.
About the PPC. I remember, just adding a little point, I remember seeing not long time ago a search engine page where first products being sold by Amazon, I mean the first line, and then a couple of lines of this product later in the middle of the page, there was a big brand ad. And it looks so cool that I didn't been able to track what is the click-through rate and the conversions compared to the first products, but this video ad looked so interesting and explaining the product so well that I believe that this brings so much attention to the video compared to just products, even if the products have better price or much higher review rate. So yeah, as we always say, protect your brand and adjust your brand strategies of the adjust the PPC towards the strategy which is focused on the brand awareness. But yeah, thanks for saying. And I believe just last slide, I know Stan, you already mentioned quite a lot about how Amazon works, but maybe it would be interesting to hear a bit more and hear a couple of bullet points, but just in general, also interesting to maybe know more about how Amazon chooses the products and launches the product, how they identify the opportunity, and yeah, maybe how to outcompete Amazon as a third-party seller in different niches.
Yeah, I mean, as a general rule, and I'm probably not saying anything that the audience doesn't know, but what sells on Amazon is things that can have a longer life, a higher replenishment, and ability to forecast demand. So I think you heard earlier, I ran apparel and footwear. So I'm running categories that actually has the highest turnover of ASINs and seasonal product. And even in those categories, the items that live longer, that live on replenishment, you can picture like a Levi 501 or something, you know, those items Amazon does extremely well with. And I'm not saying Amazon's going to go copy the Levi 501, but things that Amazon will sell is picture like a white dress shirt, a men's white dress shirt, or basic underwear, medical scrubs, actually. These are the types of things that the product isn't going to change much over time. It probably doesn't have a lot of seasonality. And therefore, the forecast demand is actually fairly stable. It's easy to forecast. Those are going to be the types of items Amazon, and you know, like you mentioned batteries earlier. It's an extremely easy product to forecast demand. And they probably, you know, not to say whether you know they copy this or look at it or whatever, but do they know how many batteries they're selling in other brands? Of course they do. So they can already see all of that before they make a decision of how many, you know, what batteries should we go after and how many should we start making from day one. And so how you should think about that as a seller is how do you make it difficult for Amazon to either copy, to sell the same item, or if they are going to sell the same item, how are you going to iterate into something else? How can you adjust and augment your own, you know, your own assortment? And thinking in terms of, you know, the one thing Amazon cannot compete with, because I just said, well, they're not going to make a Levi 501. Well, they could make the product. They can't make themselves Levi. They can't copy a brand name. Obviously, that's against the law, but let alone it being against the law is that the customer, it resonates with them that they, you know, that I've worn Levi's 501s before. It fits a certain way. So how do you create that brand integrity and image over time with your particular brand? You mentioned it earlier, and I'm going to actually sort of speak on behalf of certain processes within Amazon. If you have your own brand, even if you don't think your brand is what's selling your product, you absolutely, you know, it is incumbent on you to register your brand with brand registry at Amazon and make sure that you are the brand owner and that you control anything that is related to your brand, and do that early on in the process. I can't tell you how many times I see sticky problems related to brand registry, brand ownership, brand trademarking, and all of that. So just that's one thing. The second thing is the comments about sponsored bidding and how Amazon does this and how you should be thinking about it, and the information that you can glean off of Amazon that they do provide, is be very careful to just follow direction based on Amazon saying, oh, you should bid on this keyword or, you know, whatever else. The reality is Amazon will be very quick to tell you to dial up and spend more. They're very slow to tell you to dial down. I can guarantee you that in costumes, which I said I launched, that, you know, Amazon systems, even though we've had costumes, I'm not there anymore. They've had costumes for like, I think 13 years now in adult. The reality is seasonality, you will still get recommendations to keep dialing up, keep spending more on sponsored bidding on October 28th, on October 29th. Their system does not know very well to tell you to dial down. I'm telling you an obvious one, but there's others where you may be launching a product, you want to bid on that 5th or 7th ranked keyword term, and you go bid on that. But what if somebody else starts bidding on those terms as well? You should actually start dialing down your bidding on those terms and go bid on something else. Amazon won't tell you that. Your data may tell you that, but Amazon's data won't tell you that. So just make sure that, you know, be cautious on just following Amazon's recommendations indiscriminately and question the data that you're getting.
That's a good one. I believe that sometimes Amazon recommendations might be also not so relevant. Sometimes before spending on advertising, you just simply need to restructure some things, some very basic aspects in your listing, because then there will be no conversions and you end up spending too much.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the first thing I tell anybody is focus on your organic search before you spend a dime. Get your organic search right. It'll help you on Amazon. It'll help you off Amazon. It may help you on your own site, wherever you're happening to sell. Get your organic search right before you do anything else. Then go start spending. And will you ever hear that from Amazon? Maybe from ex-Amazon. I don't know. Hopefully I said that when I was there too.
Yeah, then another Amazon people who work right now, they still will call us, they still will recommend us to manage the campaigns in a certain way. But yeah, getting back, just one thing that we mentioned so quite much, and I believe right now it's a very crucial part to start on Amazon, get your trademark, do the brand registry. It's not so expensive compared to the advantages and it's advantages that you might get, and it's very nice return on investment from all the brand content, from all the brand advertising that you will be able to do. And it also takes time. So once you start selling, sometimes like it might take from 3 months to up to 2 years to get the trademark. So it's a recommendation that we say right now already to the sellers who only started, in order to test Amazon to have the brand trademark and the brand registry. But yeah, that was all the slides, and thank you very much for speaking and commenting on this. As I mentioned, we do it for the second time right now. On the previous webinar, we also did a couple of companies get back to us. What we offer is a free of charge audit of the account. So we go through the account, we check all the related things related to the search engine optimization, to the PPC, and make you suggestions of the improvement. If you're not selling on Amazon, we do the research and give you an information and data about the potential performance that you can have on Amazon. I want to also say about Stan that he's right now providing a very useful service in Amazon space. I know that many sellers, they are dealing with account verification problems and different issues that Seller Central is just not helpful at all. And I know that Stan is a very good person to contact. I believe it's okay if I just say that people can find you on LinkedIn and say that if help needed, Stan can, by using his knowledge and his network, to help to go through different verification processes. Sometimes we know it also from our experience, it's not possible to just open an account because maybe you submit some documentations in the wrong way, or you do some wrong actions, and Amazon just don't give you access to open an account. And luckily, we at InHouse right now, we can say that we have 100% success rate of opening account, but I know it's not the case for many sellers. So yeah, feel free to get in touch with us. And it was the last slide of our webinar today. I hope everyone found it useful, and some contact details here as well. So I wish you all a very great day, and to all the speakers, to Andre and Stan, thank you for sharing your knowledge and participating today.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Same here. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.